dentist. We're like 3, 2, 1. Like
3, 2, 1. We are live. Welcome to the ImprovED podcast. My name is Justin Coffey, and I'm a consultant with Southwest Plains in Sublette, Kansas.
And I'm Jen Farr. Oh, I always talk over you.
No, that's great. It's all good. I was just going to share my Twitter handle. That's all.
Justin Coffey, go share your Twitter handle before I introduce myself.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Justin B. Coffey. But I've got a great co-host with me today. So
who can never figure out the introduction phase. I'm going to need a script next time. I'm Jen Farr. I teach 5th grade in Junction City at Lincoln Elementary. You can find me on Twitter at Jennifer M. Farr.
Excellent. And we have a great guest today. Like, this is a real, true honor. I feel like I need to sit up a little straighter and
try on a tie.
Yeah, I should have definitely put on a tie. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Jen, to do an introduction.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to read his whole resume because I did pull it up online and it's 7 pages long. Are you aware of that?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I will say, from the Kansas Teacher of the Year banquet last year, one fact does stand out to me. I'm going to tell you lots of many facts about yourself, Dr. Watson, but you have dedicated more than 35 years of your life to working in public education. You've not only been a teacher, a principal, and a superintendent, but now you are currently the commissioner of the Department of Education for the state of Kansas, leading the agency. This is the most important, I think, role right now that you are serving in, is leading the agency in the redesign of Kansas public education. And that's fueled by the state board's vision for the education crafted in partnership with the citizens of Kansas. So I think those are the biggest points of impact.
Yeah.
Those are some pretty big points.
So welcome.
Well,
and
thank you.
Our friend. That's my title.
Our friend. Yes. Justin and Jennifer, my friend. So thanks for having me tonight. It's a pleasure. I think what we've been trying to set this up for 6 weeks, right? But Jennifer couldn't make it any time. So we always had to be pre-scheduled. No, not quite.
One time. I'm not leading the state in redesign.
So it's my pleasure to be here with you tonight and talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So all things good Kansas education, because we're rocking it. We got some great teachers and administrators and parents and kids, and we're just rocking it out. I have the opportunity. In fact, this week I was supposed to be in D.C. and didn't go. And honestly, it's because there's so much work to be done here, and I really don't care what's going on in other states. It's just we are listening to what Kansans want to do, and we're trying to do it, and it's hard work, and so let's get after it. So what do you want to talk about tonight? K-State football. Yeah.
Spring game Saturday. Let's go.
Yeah, I know. It all gets rolling.
Man, you already got the date down and everything. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a big year for us. Okay, so talk to me about your journey. Justin usually asks this, and he stole my question last time, so I'm stealing his. Talk to us about how did you get to where you are now? Your journey in education. What got you started?
Yeah, so I'm one of those lucky people in life. I honestly, I don't remember the day, but I remember 7th grade, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a history teacher. I wanted to coach basketball. And I just remember that in 7th grade. And so I went to Kansas State to do both of those. And somewhere around my junior year, someone said, "What do you plan to do with this history degree?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to teach high school." And they said, "Well, no, you're not. You're in arts and sciences. You got to be in education." I'm like, "Oh, no one told me that." So that kind of tells you I just kind of stumbled to get to K-State. But I grew up in Coffeyville and graduated from Kansas State. Went on to teach in Tesket, Kansas, a small 1A school in north central Kansas. And I great memories and taught there. Everything, if you're in 1A school, you teach it all. So I was the social studies department. I was the junior class and senior class sponsor, because you don't know that you're not supposed to be those things. You do prom and the senior trip. I coached boys basketball, girls volleyball, and track. and they paid me $14,000 for that experience. It was pretty
Wow.
good. I was single. Nobody would even rent me a house in Tesket. I was banished to the suburb of Beverly, where I rented a church parsonage for $65 a month. And then I went from there to Andover, Kansas, and taught. I was not the department chair there, and I could teach just U.S. history to juniors, and did that at the new Andover High School, which I'm going to tell you how old I am. It was the brand new Andover High School that they're tearing down this year. Okay. So that tells you how ancient I am. And coached girls volleyball and boys basketball again. And had a wonderful time there. Went to Concordia, where I spent 6 years. I was high school principal, and then in 3 moved to McPherson, first assistant superintendent. And then I was superintendent from 05 till 15 when I took this job in November of 14 and transitioned in 15. So lifelong Kansan, lifelong educator. My wife is an elementary principal. My daughter is currently a middle school art teacher, and my son is a 2D animator working on some TV things. So that's it.
That's really awesome.
That's pretty boring. I'm just a
I love that you're born and raised in Kansas. I think that's a bigger deal when you're leading the Kansas vision.
Well, Jennifer, because I've said this, I just think we're all 1 degree separated from each other in Kansas. So, you can just walk up to anyone in Kansas, start a conversation, and within, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, if you don't know that person, you certainly know you have people in common. If not, you're related some way. So, and I really think that enables us to really get some stuff done. And, and the other thing that I didn't really realize, or I didn't really ponder until I got out of school, is I grew up in a single household. My mom raised me and my sister. And so I had that, kind of those ACEs type of things. But I had a great extended family, and I think that made up for it. Great grandma and grandpa and cousins and all that. So, and we didn't grow up with much money. She was a secretary and on a single mom on a paycheck. So, we didn't go without food, but I thought everyone was poor back then. So, just kind of the way we lived. So, I bring all that to the job.
So when you came to this position in 2014, 2015, you didn't just step in and do the regular old thing. There was some change that was happening. And so I don't know if you can spend just a little bit. Jennifer and I have heard this story, and I think a lot of people in Kansas have. I think you've done an amazing job of spreading the message and the word to Kansas teachers. But for some of our viewers who are out of state, can you just talk a little bit about the process that you went through to bring this change to Kansas education?
Sure. So I always start off, I had this really, really good job as superintendent in McPherson, Kansas. And a gentleman that I admire a great deal. In fact, he's the current interim president at Wichita State University because they had a sudden death, Andy Tompkins. Well, I had invited Andy to come talk to some of our students, high school students in McPherson. And he showed up and said, that commissioner's job open, you really ought to think about that. I'm like, I have no interest in that whatsoever. It's a great job, and I love what I'm doing. But he really convinced me that I should take a look at it. And when I came to the job, I thought, in order for me to have any satisfaction in this job, I have to make it different than how I have to make it what I perceive it to be. And fortunately, the state board, when I kind of pitched that to them, said, that's exactly what we want. Go do that. So the minute I was hired, I grabbed Brad Nuenswander, who's the deputy, and said, we're going to go tour Kansas. And we're going to go to as many places in Kansas as we need to go. And we're going to ask them what they want in their education system. So we did. We went to 20 different locations throughout our state and just held public forums. So it was really anyone come. We advertised as much as we could. We got a lot of media. And as you would guess, we had a lot of teachers, but we had a lot of parents, and we had some business people, and we had a lot of people. And we asked 3 simple questions that we still use today in 2019 to drive our work. The first question was, when you think of a successful 24-year-old living in our state, could you please describe it, that person? Give us the skill sets, the characteristics, the attributes. Just richly describe in detail in your mind what that person looks like. That question formed our vision. That question also told us what Kansans thought were important. But then the second question is all about the redesign, which was, then what is the school role to design or to help make that young person you just described? What should schools do to help foster that child that you just described? And that became the principles of redesign that we gave to schools. The third question was, what should higher ed do to change to do the same thing? And we gave that off to higher ed. So we're still using that work 4 years from now. We got done with the 20 different sites. We didn't have as much business participation as we would like. We had over 2,000, about 2,200 people showed up at the 20 sites, which was the largest qualitative study ever done in Kansas on education. But when people came in, we just said, like, Justin, sign in and tell us who you represent. So that was self-selected. So you might have said Justin Coffey, teacher. And so when we looked at that, not many people had said Justin Coffey, business leader or business owner, even though they could have been. So I called the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, said, we need your help. We need to engage local chambers. And Brad and I want to go out to 7 additional towns that we didn't visit originally. And we just want to go to the Chamber of Commerce, and we want business people to come in. And they did. And we went back out and we engaged business leaders in 7 different locations, from mom and pop shops to Cerner, Cargill, Black and Veatch, Spirit, Boeing, everything in between, and asked the same 3 questions. And remarkably, the answers were exactly the same. 70% of the general public, 81% of the business leaders said, what make up success are things you cannot measure on a test. And they clearly said, Kansas, you were out of balance by chasing solely a test score as the only means of measurement to whether a kid is going to be successful. And that we listened very clearly to that. And, you know, it's still a challenge today for many people. I think there's still this, I call it kind of an insane way in which we think about education, because test scores are easy to measure. And so we gravitate as that's got to be the only thing. I mean, yes, I get people all the time. Yes, I know that stuff, but tell me what the test scores are. Well, I'm willing to do that, but only if I tell you 6, 7, 8 more things with it, because that starts to make up the whole child. And if you're not interested in that, then you're going to get a false sense of whether that child's going to be successful or not. Because when we boiled down that research, and I'm going to give you the layperson, not what the research say. The layperson, I put it in this words. Kansas said, successful young people are happy. They have a sense of fulfillment. They give back to others in their community, and they have the skill set that enables them to earn a living, at least in the middle class. Okay, so if test scores go up in your school and suicide rates go up, are you being successful? I would say no. You got to look at that, right? I mean, it may not be, we don't look upon that as whose fault it is. It's what do the kids need? And they said we need perseverance and grit and integrity and curiosity and self-regulation. And we need to help kids in social, emotional factors. We need to raise the rigor, academic rigor, no doubt about that. But we need to do it in more meaningful work, real world work and projects. We need to stop worrying so much about grade spans and just work and personalize the experience for kids. And so we gave those principles out in our redesigned schools and said, now you guys go design it, right? No 2 are going to look exactly alike. You get your community together, you get your parents and culture together, and teachers, parents, administrators together, flat organization, you design it. And so we think it's unique. I mean, when we looked at redesign in a lot of other states, we looked at charter schools and vouchers where you create these special schools. So, and there's nothing wrong with those. There's great examples of some really remarkable schools that do that. But we found when you do that, you either go build a new building, which didn't happen most of the time. You got some old building and you renovated it. And then, but then what you did though is you hired a principal who then he or she hired the staff that they wanted to come in and teach in this school. We said, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to take existing school with existing principal, existing staff, existing school board, and we're not going to give them any more money. And in 1 year, they're going to design the school that they want, and they're going to launch. And 4 years from now, they will go to they'll land on the moon. It'll be a 5-year process from the time they start planning, and it will be the hardest thing they've ever done, but they're going to do it. And that's why we ask schools to say, you got to vote. You got to have 80% of your staff want to do this. You got to have a letter of support from your union, because everyone said, well, the union will get in the way. You can't do it. And then you had to have a public vote of your school board that enabled you to do it. And currently, 2 years into it, we have 47 school districts, 110 schools. And we just had 19 school districts apply for Apollo, and we'll be making that announcement next week. So we're excited. So there we go. That's it in a nutshell. There's my life.
So
There's
awesome.
my professional life in 30
Love it. So we're starting to see other states follow the trend of Kansas. And I see the label redesign a lot. If you had to clarify a definition of what redesign is, you kind of talked about the principles of redesign, but if a state and a school are looking to really redesign, I see a lot of like flexible seating being called redesign.
Yeah, that's number 54, as you know, on the list of things you ought to do, right?
Yep. I
Yeah.
mean, you look at a list of, and you read these articles, oh, we've redesigned.
No.
What do you feel like what do you feel a successful school, and I'm not saying that you have to say co-teaching or things like that. What is a successful redesigned school teach?
It's real simple, Jen. It's real simple. It's just really hard to execute, but the concept's really simple. So whatever the number of kids that you have in your school, so let's say it's 300, 400, 500, 100, 1,000, doesn't matter. What do we need to do today to ensure that every one of those kids is successful, that they're happy, they're fulfilled, they give back to others, and they're learning skill sets that will enable them eventually to have a meaningful job, at least in the middle class, or make jobs. And until we see kids not dropping out of school, until I see kids not sleeping in class, until I see kids that are having meltdowns, until I see kids that can't read at grade level, then we haven't done our job. So the key is, and I think teachers are working hard. This is not a teacher problem. We firmly believe in Kansas that teachers are stuck in a system that was made for basically students and families that came from a homogeneous background. Mm-hmm. They came from two parents that supported them. And when we still have that, by and large, the system we're in now still works. There's hiccups, but it works. But so many of our kids are not with two parents, or if they are, the two parents are working two jobs and they're doing shift work. And so we just find families are under more stress. It's not Leave It to Beaver and Ozzie and Harriet, families. I mean, they're not going home, and mom's, hey, I've got cookies baked for you, and we're just going to wait for you to get home. And so we have to respond as a system different. And I always think of my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Smith, wonderful kindergarten teacher. And we had AM and PM, back in those days. And I was in the PM class, 28 kids. She had 30 in the morning. We were baby boomers coming in the early 60s. And I think, how did she do it? But I remember going to my class reunion, not my family reunion, my class reunion, and someone threw up a picture of Mrs. Smith's class. And I'm looking at it while they're kind of yucking it up about, oh, look at who we are. And I noticed that the range of kids that she had, from the poorest kid to the wealthiest kid, was literally about here. The academic level that we all came to kindergarten with was about here. So she could teach the whole group of 28. Today, kindergarten teachers in Dodge City, in Junction City, in Cedarville, Kansas, you're not even going to be able to see it. The gap is there. And so teachers are going, you got to lower my class size. You got to give me some help. I can't differentiate enough when I've got kids coming into kindergarten with less than 300 word vocabulary, and some who are reading at a second grade level. Same thing in math. I have some kids that don't know their colors. They can't color in a line. They can't pick up a piece of scissors. They've never picked up a pencil. They don't know what the color blue is, to other kids that are making masterpieces. I've got kids that are growling underneath their desk. They're running out in the street from me. I've got other kids that are already playing, with each other in centers. How do I handle this? So superintendent, lower my class size to 14 or 15, and I think I could do it. And the superintendent says, Jen, I'd love to do that. We don't have enough money. Okay, then give me a couple pairs. See the system? Because what's broken is that we can't figure out how to differentiate. So I mean, we can talk about what I think it ought to be, but it doesn't matter. It's those teachers have to get together and say, if we were to structure school for my kid and my grandkids, how would we structure it? And so we're letting teams of teachers do it. And they tell us, this is the hardest thing we've ever done because no one's ever asked us. We've thought about just what you said, Jen. This year, I'm going to do some projects and I'm going to get some flexible seating. And when the door shuts, it's just me. And now I've got to do it collectively. I got to figure out, are we going to have art? Or do we need a librarian? Do we need a reading specialist? When should we start school during the day? Should we go in the summer? Should we team teach or should we just do it alone? There's all kinds of decisions to be made. And in the past, we didn't ask teachers to do that. We just said, well, you can't, and you know what would happen. Well, we can't do that because the buses have to run at 3. No, that's all man-made. Or we can't do that because they got to go to specials at 9, 10, right? All of that, we just said, forget all that and design it the way that we should do it. And we just have some remarkable things going on. Again, 47 school districts, 110 schools, and we're just so proud of them and the work that they're doing. And we're far from complete. We're just in the launch year for some of those 47 and the planning year for the others. So we've got a long way to go. We're, at best, we're 1 year or 2 years into a 5-year plan.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a blog post, it's probably been like 2 years ago now, but it was about how it's such an extraordinary time to be a teacher in Kansas. Because like you said, teachers are having some voice now. Like the redesign process is not about the state coming in and telling a school district what to do or the principal coming in and telling teachers what to do. It's a collective effort where teachers have voice and the community has voice and we work on solving this problem together. So although it's an extraordinary time to be a teacher in Kansas, and I think things have gotten better for teachers in Kansas. I remember when you were first taking over, remember Missouri was like throwing fishing lines over the border there, like
billboards on our interstates. That's desperation. That's desperation, you Missourians trying to take our teachers.
Yeah, and I think things have definitely gotten a lot better in the last couple of years for teachers in Kansas. But we know that there's this teacher shortage going on too. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Like maybe some things that we can do in the short term or maybe some things that we have in the works over the long term to help address that issue in Kansas?
Sure. So you don't get into a shortage overnight, as you know, and you don't get out of a shortage overnight because you've got at least a 4-year cohort of young people in school that are going to come out. And so the shortage you start to see with the freshman class that comes in, but you don't see them exit until 4 years later or 5 years later, depending if you take 4 or 5. So you can see the shortage coming, but you don't feel it until you get to that cycle. And then let's say we increased it by 25% in this freshman class in the fall of 19, you're not going to experience them until 24. Does that make sense? So you don't get out of it immediately. Some of that was money, no doubt about it. And I'm so proud of the Kansas legislature and the governor. They just passed a historic school finance bill and sent it to the court that has 5 years of stable funding with the cost of living after that we've never seen that in the history of Kansas. So I'm very proud of their efforts. That was bipartisan, and I just thank them for a heavy lift on that. We'll see what the court says when the court gets it. But I think it's more than money. We spent too much time bashing education, and I think teachers felt beat up. And I don't know that it was always said, but it was certainly implied that we've got problems in education, and you teachers are the problem. And then what I watched, now I'm going to be honest and I'll talk about some of the solutions. Then we started having our own profession tell kids don't go into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that still happens. And this is a great profession. And there's money, there's money in the last couple of years, and now there's even more money going to be coming. So no one ever went into it to get rich, but you're going to see that you're not going to have to be poor to do this either. But we've got to tell people, we got to tell our best and brightest kids, I want you to be a teacher. I want you to go into this. I'm going to even help you. I'll write you letters of reference. We'll see if we can get you some scholarships. And then I want you to come back to our school. And if you don't come back to our school, go somewhere in Kansas and be a teacher. And call your friends at, or somewhere else. Like I've got some cousins in Missouri. I'm like, they teach. When you coming to Kansas? I'm calling your principal. We're stealing you right now. So I think that's where it starts. You change the discussion about being a teacher in Kansas, and then that means people want to be a teacher versus, no, I don't know that you want to do that. Now, some other things that we have done. I think one of the best things we did, we did what we called a para to teaching program, and this is outstanding. So if you had a good para that's been a para for a number of years, they had a baccalaureate degree, but was just a para, not a teacher, and he or she had great potential, all the teacher had to do is go to the principal and say, Joan is a really great para. She's been with us for 12 years. She'd make a great teacher. The principal signed a form, went to Joan, said, I think you ought to do this. And in 2 years, we've got programs now at universities like Wichita State where you can keep your job as a para, you can go to school at night and in the summer, and in 2 years you'll be a teacher. And what's so remarkable, but we have 400 paras that are coming out to be teachers in that program. 2 years ago we had 0. Mm-hmm. Okay, they would have to go to school for 4 years. So we have 400, and what's really cool about that isn't just the number. Those people stay in your community. They don't go somewhere else. So they're able to stay in Garden City, be a para, and then stay right there and be a teacher. Or they're able to stay in Concordia, right? They don't have to leave to even go to college. That's been a remarkable thing. And we think we may grow that even more over the next few years. And that's just been a home run. So I think if we continue to look at innovative things like that, coupled with make sure you have a teacher pathway in every high school that you serve. We don't have a teacher pathway in every high school, in every school district. Get one, get the best teacher you have in your school district, your teacher of the year, your 3 teachers of the year, I don't care, and they're going to teach those kids. And they're going to get the chance to job shadow other teachers there. They're going to get to do internships, and then go down to your local bank and say, you know what, scholarship one kid, just one kid, and scholarship them and make them come back. And if they come back for 5 years, we call it good. And then down the road, do 2, then do 3. And all of a sudden you're in Dighton, Kansas, and you've got 3 kids coming back every year to Dighton, Kansas and spending at least 5 years, and they'll stay. And they're the best kids that you ever could have had. So those are some things we've got going on. And I want to say this because the billboard was up, we import. We import more teachers from our surrounding states than we export. In some cases, it's over 2 to 1 in a couple of the states that border us. So we're proud of that too, and that means that we're doing something right. And this is a place where people want to go. But we still got to have work to do, and we all have work to do. I have work to do, and I think all of us have work to do to continue to promote the profession.
I think we are a little bit at fault as a profession because we do not shout out what we do. We're not loud and proud about our job, or, hey, today I had this great lesson. I just want to let everybody know. And I think we're to blame for a little bit of our bad public image. And I think, you look at other professions like doctors. When somebody finds a cure for a medicine or a best practice, what does medicine do? They put them on a road and they share their knowledge, and then other people take that knowledge and make it better, and then they all learn from each other. And we don't do that. We're scared of that. And I think we have to do better as teachers.
Absolutely. Both of you, of course, Kansas Teachers of the Year, and so you've seen the process and you've heard us talk about that. And it's true. And that I think you two are rock stars beyond rock stars. But we tell people, that the Teachers of the Year, we go to the regions, and we have elementary and a secondary in each region. We form the team that then tours. they aren't necessarily the best teachers in the state of Kansas, but they represent the best teachers, and they get an opportunity to shine and honor them. And for whatever reason,
and learn from them.
Oh yeah,
Best professional development ever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And for whatever reason, I think it's our humble how teachers just want to always defer and give of themselves. We don't like honors bestowed upon us, and so it's uncomfortable for us. But that uncomfortableness resonates to other people outside of our profession as if we don't care. And so even when we have people, no, don't even put me up for teacher of the year. I don't want that. You have to do that. It's beyond you. We're gonna honor you, so we honor everyone in the pod, honors everyone in the building, and everyone in our community. And then when you walk in that room, you're honoring every teacher in our state. And then you're going to get to go talk to future teachers. You know all the things you get to do. And so that's why Dale and I, from the regionals all the way to the state level, we try to make those evenings as special for families and for the honorees as possible, because we want them to know they are so important. And higher ed does it really well. I mean, your doctors, lawyers, shoot, they parade up and they get plaques and they smile and they take they get cruises, and we're like, we don't want that. No, we don't want that. No, get dressed up, come have a big banquet and then get all the accolades that we can bestowed upon you. But that's hard, right?
And build that network to learn from each other. I think it's intimidating to have somebody come back and have all this extra knowledge, but we do that so we can share it with others and make everybody else better. It's like a family. I mean, it becomes a family.
It does. It does. And again, Justin, you know this. I mean, it's true for everyone. Jen, you know this. But too often what happens, you come back and someone down the hall says, well, Justin Coffey, who's he think he is? I mean, that's just eating our own, right?
Yeah.
We've got to be able, I mean, you hear that from everyone on the teacher of the year team. I'm a little bit, I mean, they say I'm a little bit better known outside of my school than I am in my school. And it's this hard cycle that we have of saying, man, I'm going to be happy for you because you're representing me. And you get it once you're a K-Toy person. It's hard to tell people about that until they experience it. And then they're like, I get it. But as I'm out there talking, I tell people, when we're in Salina in the first district, Justin, that you're a part of, well, Jen, you're a part of too. It's such a huge place. Why are we not packed? Right? Yeah. I mean, we should be where we have to have a thing, in a stadium. Because we
Western Kansas, we're looking at you.
Yes, that's right. You need to pony up.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're talking about that, because I'm in a lot of school districts, and a lot of school districts are hesitant to nominate a teacher because they're like, oh, well, I don't want that extra attention on the teacher. And I'm like, please, we need to celebrate education. It's not about, you're exactly right. It's not that you're the best teacher in the school or anything like that. It's a celebration of education. It's a celebration for the work that teacher has put in. And Jen, you're totally right too. It's about creating connections with other teachers from around the state and learning and growing and sharing. And it's the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever. So I'm happy that we're talking about that, because that deadline's coming up here pretty soon. It
is. And we should have every school. And if you're a really small school, maybe you do it every other year. I get it, right? Or you don't do an elementary and a secondary. You maybe alternate years. 1 year elementary, next year secondary. That's fine. Sure. And then once you nominate, shoot, you grab grandma and grandpa and the person down the street at the hardware store, and you drive to Salina, Kansas, if you're in the first district, and you spend a Saturday. And what's Justin, your school is a perfect example, because they have back K-Toy, and I'm telling you, they do, and they come in, on Friday because they got to drive so far, and from Hugoton and Liberal and Dodge and Garden, and everyone's there. Everyone's there. And then, Dale always whispered in my ear, sometimes go, oh, where's their principal? Where's their superintendent? And then we try to make that even more special for them, because it is, it's another Saturday out, but it's so important. It's the little things. And when Governor Collier became governor, and he asked me, he said, what's the one thing I could do? And I said, you're coming to the Teacher of the Year. You're just,
Amen.
and he came and spent the whole time.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And he spent the whole night there, and that spoke wonders, right? I said, I don't need your money. I need your time. And you just need to walk around and tell people you appreciate them. And that's what teachers want. They want to feel valued. And once they feel valued, then they'll do anything for you.
Absolutely. Okay. So, I'm working in a lot of school districts, and a lot of school districts are being kind of shy about redesign for some reason, and I'm not 100% sure. But I'm going to kind of ignore that for just a minute and I'm going to talk about a teacher within that school. So what maybe advice do you have for a teacher who's in a school and that for whatever reason that school district isn't ready to take the plunge into redesign? Do you have any advice for what that teacher could do in their individual classroom or to help start having some of those conversations in a school system?
Yeah, I think the first thing is find another teacher in that school that wants to do it too. Just one. So if you're in elementary, either grab the other grade level. If you're the only grade, grab the one below you or the one above you. And then go to an ed camp. Just start going to every ed camp in the summer. Everyone. That's what I do. I go all over the state. I mean,
he really does.
Right? And just go to every one of them. That's my summer. I'm going to go to every one of those, and then connect. With you can connect with Kansas Ed Chat on Twitter. You can do you guys. There's lots of professional learning that can go on, and then just say, hey, I want to learn everything about it, and the two of us are going to do it, and we're going to share every time we have a faculty meeting. And we're going to drag our principal kicking and screaming and the other people. And we're just going to do it. We're going to have a lot of fun and we're going to learn. And you know what? We'll take you. You can come to all of our sessions. You can come to them. I mean, all of our redesign, if you're just a teacher wants to come. These are open. You can go to our website and you can get all the documents and you can do everything that we know of. So it's just, and we have teachers doing that. I've been in all 286 school districts multiple times now. And I can just tell you, in every school, there's remarkable teachers.
Yeah.
And they're looking for other remarkable teachers to join in that. So that's what I would do.
I love it.
You guys,
really nice.
Justin, you travel all over now. And so as you said, you see a lot. And Jennifer's she's in a redesign school district school. So you tell me what you see.
I mean, change is hard. As you're talking, I'm thinking about what's the statement where you challenge the comfortable and comfort the challenged. And I think we've gotten comfortable with what we do. I think we've gotten comfortable with packaged curriculum. I think we've gotten comfortable with looking at 3 data points, including state assessments. And I think we fall back on that. And so it's uncomfortable. But I think if you connect with somebody that's doing it and just hear what they're doing and toss around ideas, I think you find that it's a little bit easier and it brings back that joy of your everyday classroom, because I can put away that teacher manual and I can let the kids tell me what they need and what they want to learn and then tweak it around them.
And they will, and they'll tell you. They're very honest, yeah.
Oh, it's even at 5th grade, it's unreal what they'll tell you they need. And, one day I thought, well, I'm going to do math groups and just say, okay, this is the 3 things I'm covering. Who needs what? You decide, and we'll go. And I thought, good Lord, help me, help them make right decisions. And they did. And they didn't need me. They don't need you to be the leader. They need you to guide.
Yeah, and inspire and challenge them. Justin, I remember a few years ago when you had the issue with immigration. And it was a really, and you talked about the lesson that you did in math that day. I remember that. Hey, when people are raiding your homes, you don't know if mom and dad are going to be home when you are deported. You got to make that part of your lesson.
Algebra doesn't matter so much at that point.
That's right. Yeah. And so I just remember you talking about how you just, okay, the lesson plan gets funded. Here we go. We're going to do that. That's just knowing your kids. That's the art of teaching, right? The science is you got a depth of knowledge that you can pull from and you got a bag of tricks. The art is knowing when to apply it and how to apply it to each kid to draw it out of them. And both of those, the science and the art, you learn over time. You learn from engaging in deep learning, applying it and watching other people do it and stealing everything you can from really good people, and then getting to do it over and over again.
Man,
always comes back to that relationship piece.
Yeah. And I'm just so proud to be a Kansas educator. I know some of the pushback that I've heard, and I haven't heard it as much recently, but that we're looking at students a couple years out of high school and looking at their success. And I think at first a lot of school districts will say, hey, once they leave my door, what do you want me to do? I don't control them anymore. But I'm so proud that our state is looking at that data, because if we're not producing students who can be successful a couple years out of high school, what are we doing this all for, right? Like, to me, it's the most important thing that we can do is help them so that they can be successful those couple years past high school.
So I know, Justin, you've got younger kids, and Jen, my buddy, is sleeping right now.
I know.
I have a 33-year-old who teaches, and I have a 25-year-old that's an animator. And so they're adults, they're young adults, and still today, I feel responsibility as their dad to make sure they're successful still today, right? And that doesn't stop. So why does a teacher say, well, when they leave me at 6th grade, I'm done? No, I mean, you don't control everything past that, but the 13 years that they spend with us in K-12, or 14 if they started in pre-K, has to have some impact, right? And so, and there's lots of ways to change. Our extreme example of this is happening in May in Ulysses, Kansas.
Hey, tell that story, because I don't think everybody's aware of it.
Yes, we have a young man in Ulysses, Kansas, and I'll be at his graduation. He's going to graduate from Harvard in May at the same time he graduates from high school, and he's only 16 too.
Wow.
Let's throw that out there.
Wow.
And he's already been admitted into law school. So, and how did that happen? It happened because we took a look at his needs, and he has this great set of parents that just are the salt of the earth people I just love, and him, and said, you know what, he's not ready at 14, 15 to be at Harvard, but he needs the academic level, and he needs to go to prom, and he needs to play tennis, and do all the things that a high school kid would do. And so all the credit to Ulysses High School, his family, and Harvard, everyone had a part in making that happen. Okay, now, that's an extreme example. He told me the other day, he said, I want to go out with you and talk to other schools, because there's lots of me's out there. And I said, there's not lots of you's out there, but there are lots of kids that could be welders before they ever get out of school, or they could be teachers already working in classrooms, and they could be working on an associate degree. They could be working on a skilled labor like a plumber. And we could be partnering apprenticeship and doing those things. So I think you just have to look at each child, and then you design what you need around each child. And as the child gets older, that's a little bit easier. But to do that in a system is what perplexes us. Mm-hmm. So Dodge City has how many kids, Justin, in the high school? 1,500?
Oh, more than that. Just under 2,000, I think.
Okay. How do you do it for 2,000 kids, right? I mean, you can see when I'm looking at one kid, okay, I get that. Hey, but Randy, I've got 180 kids a day, and the school has 2,000. I don't know how to organize that. That's our challenge, is how we organize it. It's not that we don't get it, that we need to individualize. We don't have a concept for how to do that, so we still do this whole group. I really see the future as much less whole group instruction, whole group direction, and then we're in projects that are multi-age, and we're in skill work, and the skills, whatever skill you're at, and it just blends and it changes from time to time. We have teams of teachers that you work with, so that teaching is not so isolated. And we're far from there, but I think our teachers are starting to see that.
Super exciting. Super exciting.
It brings back the joy of teaching. That's how I feel.
Yes. And I think that, again, that kind of goes back to the teacher shortage. Like, it's fun. It's fun again. Like, it's an enjoyable job. It's not, I have to do page 187 of the textbook today. And then tomorrow it'll be 188. It's an exciting time for sure.
Well, we were talking in our school, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but we were
please.
talking about like parent-teacher conferences, just how you look at that. You know, gone are the days when my parents went to conferences, and I'm not that far removed from school, more so than I'd like to admit. But my parents went in October, they went again in February, and that's all they had contact with the teacher. But now, you know, my parents are texting me and they're emailing me, and they see me at Walmart, and or they Facebook me, or they find me on Twitter, and we're having conversations, if not one time a day, but 4 times a day. And so I think that's wonderful. I think that social media has brought a good concept of being connected and allows the teacher to really be invested in the whole child. And I think we have to look at that, how we arrange school that way too. And I know what that kid needs, because I know tonight I sent him a book and his mom posted about it on Facebook, and he's read the first couple chapters. And so tomorrow I'm going to talk to him about that. I think it just changes the whole scheme of things.
Yeah, and I think we're slowly starting to think that we can't do this alone. And we've always known that, but we really have to think about be a little bit more entrepreneurial and think about how we coordinate services, not just deliver them. So, for example, you've heard me say this, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H are great learning activities. Maybe you have a kid who's taking piano lessons, right? That's a great, so you want to sit down with parents and you want to plan, let's plan the next 6 months. What does that look like in school and out of school? And let's design learning, right? And that looks different for every child, but you maximize that. And what if every kid left high school an Eagle Scout? That could be done, right? And there's great learning that all you'd have to do is say, why don't the Cub Scouts and the Campfire Girls, or the Bluebirds, the Brownies, trying to think what the Girl Scouts are, Brownies, aren't they? I jumped over to Campfire Girls, but why can't they come in as soon as school's out and run right there with the parent volunteers or whoever you have? Why can't the people doing piano lessons teach it in school, or guitar? And every kid could do that right after school, right? So parents, they don't have to walk anywhere. They don't have to go. They still have time at home later on. There's just ways to think about how we think about education differently. If we just start with a blank slate and say, if I just was going to do this for my own child, what would we do? And then let's do it for every child.
Amen.
I think Adam Welcome said it best last week when he said, we just need to simplify it. We overthink so much.
Yeah. And, there's this big push for school choice. And I don't think that thought is all terrible, although a lot of the way it's been implemented around the United States ends up being terrible. But when I think about parents having conversations with educators and with principals about the education plan for my student and how are we going to personalize it for that student, that's what I think is school choice, right? Like that's in a family having influence over the education of their child. And so I just think that it ties everything together, and I'm excited for these schools that are going through the redesign. I can't wait to see some of the things that are happening.
A little thing, Andover High School, they have a geometry class and they have a construction class, and they now have that class together. And they start off, they build a little balsa wood sheds, and they build dog houses, and they build a big shed. And they don't get to go until they have a geometry teacher and a construction. It's a 2-hour block. They get 2 credits. That's an easy one. We could do things like that all the time, right? A kid could be on a church mission trip to Guatemala building shelter, and we could be giving credit for that. We don't have to be the ones to do it all. We just have to set up, okay, here are the standards. The youth minister is going to validate that. I need him to really validate that this occurs. The kid's going to come back and give a speech or whatever, and we're going to do it. Or I was at the FCCLA, that's a Family Consumer Science student group this week, and I just watched these kids give speech after speech after speech, and they're getting no speech credit. And they're not even working with the speech teacher, right? Why not? Why in the speech teacher? You don't have to go to class. Just work with me, because I got to give 5 speeches this week at I'm an officer. We need to just think, just relax. Jen, you're right. It's simple. This is not rocket science. What's rocket science is how do you do it for masses amounts of kids? And how do you, and again, you have to think of the structure. I always say this, start with all the certified teachers you have in your building. Just So take your librarians, your reading specialists, maybe even your paras, if they work directly, even though they're not certified, and all your teachers and your principals and your assistant principal. Add up all the people that you have, and I'm not talking about the cooks or the bus drivers, and divide by the number of kids. There's your pupil-teacher ratio in that building.
Yeah.
Okay, but what happens, Justin, when you taught math, you had a load of probably 180, 150, 180 kids, because I did when I taught U.S. history, because that's a required class, right?
Yep.
But elective may only see 40 or 50 kids a day.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the pupil-teacher ratio gets skewed. But if you team that, all of a sudden, you can do something different. So but teachers will figure this out. If we continue to give them the authority to dream, eventually they'll do it. And then they have satisfaction in their job because they design it.
Yes. I love it. Dr. Watson, I could talk to you all day about this stuff. I really, really appreciate you coming in and talking with us about some of these conversations, because I can't think of anything more important. I know that a big portion of our state budget goes to education. And so we have a big responsibility, but I can't think of a better way to invest our money is putting it into these kids and helping them have a bright future. And you have been a tremendous leader in all of that. So I just want to thank you so much for your leadership and for joining us here tonight.
Well, thank you, Justin and Jennifer. You guys know what I think about both of you. You're just terrific. And, there's just nothing better that Justin and I got the opportunity, as he was teacher of the year, we got to go to those regionals together and give those same speeches, over and over and whisper in each other's ear. And then get to announce the next year. That's just so much fun when we get to spend that time together. And I just enjoyed being in Ellenwood last week with the current K-Toy team and hanging out with them all evening. So thank you. And for those people that are listening, not in Kansas, we welcome your application. You just call me and I'll streamline that baby right now, and we'll get you going in a Kansas school right now.
Erie County USD 475.
There we go. That's right. There we go.
Well, again, thank you so much for the conversation. I appreciate it. You guys have a great night. Thanks so much.
Thanks.